Chapter 1, please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1, The Wizard's Life Simulator. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Suffocation, lack of oxygen, this is Chenmu's most intuitive feeling now. He felt that he was shrouded in darkness and his mind was no longer clear. His heartbeat began to slow down and his blood pressure began to drop. He could feel the coldness of his limbs and blood flowing out of his mouth and nose. Am I going to die? All the memories of the past seemed to be blurred. At this time, he only had this thought in his mind and kept repeating it, but the next moment, a light seemed to surge in his mind, as hot and bright as the sun. The darkness was dispelled, and Chenmu's consciousness had never been so clear as it was at this time. It was as if the birds returned to the mountains and the fish swam in the sea. A memory that did not belong to him suddenly appeared in his mind. The conflict and disharmony of not being forced into a memory made Chenmu understand everything instantly. At this time, he was Willie Weasley, the second son of Arthur Weasley, the Far East Earl of the Kingdom of Winter, an ordinary person with no power. I traveled through time. This was the first thought in Chenmu's mind after he woke up. His current condition was not good, the blood pouring out of his mouth and nose stuck to his luxurious clothes, his face was pale and swollen, and his eyes were slightly bulging. His heartbeat was still a little weak, and his whole body was trembling slightly, like a drowning person who had just been salvaged. I was cursed by a wizard. This was the second thought in Chenmu's mind after he woke up. In his memory that he had already understood thoroughly, his predecessor had offended a second-level wizard apprentice who passed by the Kingdom of Winter. The cause was just a small matter, and the predecessor in the memory had sincerely apologized, and the predecessor's father Arthur Weasley also prepared a generous gift to apologize. If this matter had ended here, Chenmu would not be in this state when he first crossed over. The wizard apprentice obviously had no intention of letting his predecessor go, so he cast a curse on his predecessor when he left the kingdom. When Chenmu crossed over, his predecessor had already been cursed and drowned, and he, who took over Willie Weasley's body, still fell into a cursed state. Although he didn't know why the cursed state was cleared later, Chenmu felt that it should have something to do with his crossing. Chenmu sat on the chair with the round table, took a silk handkerchief beside him and wiped the blood from his mouth and nose. The blood had stopped flowing, but it still made Chenmu feel uncomfortable sticking to his face. Chenmu gently rubbed his eyebrows with his hands, trying to relieve his headache. Although the curse had been cleared, Chenmu could still feel the feeling of drowning at this time. His memories had been completely sorted out by him. He crossed over to a kingdom similar to the European Middle Ages in his previous life. His father is the Earl of the Kingdom of Winter, and Chenmu is the Earl's second son. This identity is considered upper class in the Kingdom of Winter. The Earl's fiefdom is very large. If compared with the previous life, Chenmu's father's fiefdom is roughly equivalent to a first-tier city in the previous life. It is precisely because of this identity that Chenmu can clearly know the existence of wizards as soon as he travels through time. That's right, unlike the European Middle Ages in the previous life, this world has extraordinary powers, even if wizards are not mentioned. In Chenmu's memory, the knight who activated the Seed of Life is not an ordinary person. In Chenmu's memory, when Willie was very young, his father Arthur Weasley took him to test the wizard qualifications. The result is not that there is no qualification at all, but it is not much better than this. The qualification detected is 5th grade. This kind of talent can only reach the level of a second-class wizard apprentice at most after practicing meditation for a lifetime. Seeing such a result, Arthur Weasley was a little disappointed, but it was just a little disappointed. He did not let Willie go out to sea to pursue the extremely vague wizard path, but brought his predecessor back to the territory. Isn't it better to be a rich kid than to be a test subject in the wizard continent? Although the father of the predecessor of the wizard continent had never been there, he knew it well. A wizard apprentice with 5th-class qualifications would be a test subject there. The wizards in the wizard continent would not care about your identity, even if you were a prince. Alas, after traveling through a lifetime, I couldn't explore the mysterious wizard path. This traveler is too unsuccessful. Chenmu sighed in his heart, but he didn't have the negative emotion of despair. At most he was a little disappointed. After all, his background is better than countless people. The son of the Earl can be said to be born in Rome. What else can he be dissatisfied with? It's the same if he can't be a wizard knight. After sorting out his thoughts, Chenmu stood up. After standing up, Chenmu tried to move his body and found that he didn't feel uncomfortable. His current condition is much better than when he just crossed over, at least the feeling of drowning is gone. Chenmu walked to the washing place according to the memory in his mind. He planned to take a shower and change clothes to find his father. He had something to ask his father in this life, but when he arrived at the place, Chenmu found that he had an inexplicable aversion to water. I don't know if the curse of the wizard apprentice before left a sequelae to this body. Chenmu felt like he wanted to escape when he saw water. Chenmu endured the discomfort, washed his body with water, and then changed into clean clothes. His complexion was not good, or even very bad, but now he could not care so much. He needed to meet his father in this life as soon as possible, because his previous life did not like the feeling of being taken care of. Chenmu lived alone most of the time. There was not even a guard in the small manor where he lived. For this reason, his father in his previous life advised him a lot. But he was rejected by his previous life. If Chenmu had not traveled through time this time, there was a high probability that his body would be found by the maid when she cleaned the room in a day or two. The place where Chenmu lived was very close to where his father, Earl Arthur, lived. Although they lived separately a long time ago, they were still in a large manor. Chenmu left as soon as he said he would, and went to the place where his father lived in this life. He met the Earl of the Far East as he wished, just like in memory. Earl Arthur had blonde hair and a full beard. He looked much stronger than Chenmu, like a lion standing upright. What happened? You look bad. Arthur looked at Chenmu and said. His voice was mellow and there was a trace of concern in his tone. Chenmu was about to answer, but he froze in his place, because a cold mechanical voice suddenly popped up in his mind. All negative states have been cleared, and the wizard's life simulator has been bound. Do you want to open the attribute panel? Chenmu nodded subconsciously in his heart. The next moment, a blue transparent light screen appeared in front of him. Name, Chenmu. Spirit, 1.3. Constitution, 0.9. Realm, none. Witchcraft, none. Night skill, none. Number of simulations, 1. Note. It has been automatically converted into an attribute panel that can be understood by the host's worldview. After the attribute panel appeared, a note appeared immediately afterwards. Do you want to start the life simulation? No. Chenmu refused subconsciously. At this time, he had already understood that his golden finger, commonly known as the plug-in, was in place. Viri. Arthur's voice came into Chenmu's ears again, bringing Chenmu, who was stunned, back to his senses. Oh, I'm really sorry, father. Don't worry, father. I just accidentally fell in the bathtub and was drowned. Chenmu said, with a hint of embarrassment in his tone. Hearing this, Arthur looked at Chenmu suspiciously, but didn't say much. At this time, Chenmu didn't care about the knight's breathing method. He was eager to go back and study his sudden plug-in, so he sorted out his words and said goodbye to his father, Earl Arthur. Although Arthur was a little surprised at his son's abnormal behavior, he just shook his head and ignored it. Back to the small manor where he usually lived, Chenmu quickly reopened the panel and focused his attention on the simulation number column. The next moment, the same black note as before appeared in front of him again. Do you want to start the life simulation? Yes. Chenmu did not hesitate. The internal investment has passed, so feel free to invest. Remember to add it to your bookshelf and read it during the new book period. Thank you for your support, brothers and sisters. Chapter 2 Quasi-Knight, Fake, please read. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Quasi-Knight, Fake, please read. Life simulation has been enabled. Due to the low version of the simulator, only text simulation is supported. The next moment, Chenmu found that the light screen in front of him had changed, and black characters began to appear one by one on the light screen. 17 years old, you traveled through time and became Willy Weasley, but you were almost killed by the curse of witchcraft, so you wanted to become stronger as soon as possible, and you set your sights on the road of knighthood. 18 years old, you told your father Arthur Weasley about your idea, but you got the news that you couldn't learn the breathing method because your physical fitness was too weak, so you began to exercise your physical fitness. 20 years old, exercise physical fitness and learn horseback archery. 21 years old, exercise physical fitness and learn swordsmanship. 25 years old, your physical fitness and knight skills have reached the minimum standard for learning the breathing method, and you begin to try to practice the golden lion breathing method of the Weasley family. 28 years old, you have been practicing the breathing method for 2.5 years but have not been able to activate the seed of life, so you want to swallow the secret medicine to forcefully activate the seed of life. 29 years old, everything is ready. Although your father Arthur Weasley does not want you to take risks for this, he still finds the best secret medicine for you, but unfortunately you fail to activate it. 32 years old, the Lord War breaks out, you are beheaded by a sword, and you die. The simulation is over, please choose your reward. Retain the realm, or retain the magic. It's over. Chenmu was a little surprised. This is the end of the simulation. To be honest, he still read the words that appeared in front of him very seriously, almost word by word. Is this my life in this life? Live to the age of 32 and be beheaded by a sword. Seeing the black text gradually disappear, leaving only the words, retain the realm, or retain the magic, Chenmu thought unconsciously in his heart. In a moment, Chenmu's heart became firm. With the simulator, his future will not be like this. He will even have to take the mysterious wizard path. Retain the realm. As soon as the thought came to his mind, Chenmu's body underwent a huge change, his muscles swelled up instantly at a speed visible to the naked eye, and even his height was raised by 2 or 3 centimeters at this moment. Crack! This was the sound of the wooden floor being broken. The sudden surge of power allowed Chenmu to easily break the wooden floor. An ugly hole appeared on the luxurious wooden texture floor. Chenmu clenched his fist, and he could feel his surge of power. He felt that he could even kill a cow with one punch now. This was not expansion, but an illusion brought to him by the sudden surge of power in an instant. The next moment, Chenmu called out the attribute panel, and a transparent light curtain instantly appeared in front of him. Name, Chenmu. Spirit, 1.3. Physique, 2.1. Area, Quasi-Knight, Pseudo. Witchcraft, none. Night skills, none. Number of simulations, 0. Physique increased by 1.2. He remembered clearly that the value of his physique column was 0.9 before, but now it is 2.1. Just one simulation has more than doubled his physique. If those who have been honing their bodies for decades knew about this, they would probably be envious and jealous to the point of going crazy. Is this a cheat? Chenmu muttered to himself. The shock he felt from the real physical strength was huge. Nothing is more real than feeling it yourself. It takes at least several years for an ordinary person to go from 0 to a Quasi-Knight. You can't become a knight without money. But Chenmu achieved the realm that countless people spent countless money and countless time to reach in just a few seconds. Chenmu had a feeling that those who had been honing their bodies for decades but didn't activate their life seeds would not have a higher physique than him. After all, in the simulation, although he failed to break through the night by taking the secret medicine, he still improved his physical fitness by a large margin. Although no one compared him, Chenmu believed that his physical fitness should be among the top among countless Quasi-Knights. Chenmu now no longer looked as pale as he did when he first crossed over. He now had a ruddy complexion, well-defined muscles, a long blonde hair, handsome eyebrows, and sharp eyes, but he was still not comparable to other Quasi-Knights. He was at most an ordinary person with the physical fitness of a Quasi-Knight, because he did not master any knight skills. He did not even know the riding and archery and swordsmanship that ordinary knight apprentices mastered. If seen by those great knights, they would only think that Chenmu was born with supernatural power and was a knight seedling with excellent knight talent, not a Quasi-Knight. Because Quasi-Knights require not only physical fitness, but also superb riding and archery and swordsmanship, and must be proficient in several knight skills, but Chenmu was already very satisfied. After all, this was only the first simulation. What was there to be dissatisfied with such a big improvement? Chenmu eagerly asked in his heart how to get the number of simulations, but got no response. In the next few days, Chenmu gradually integrated into the identity of Willie Weasley. During this period, he also had dinner with his father several times. Although Arthur was a little surprised by Chenmu's physical changes, he did not ask too much. In his eyes, Chenmu just grew a little taller, and he couldn't tell Chenmu's specific physical fitness. Chenmu was 17 years old, and it was normal for him to grow a little taller. After all, this is not a novel about cultivating immortals. where you can know your realm at a glance. Chenmu's father, Earl Arthur, was also a knight, and was called the Golden Lion Knight by the nobles of the kingdom in his early years. But after inheriting the title of Earl, the title of Golden Lion Knight rarely appeared. After all, this title is far less intimidating than the Far East Earl. A few days later, when Chenmu felt that the time was right, he found his father, Earl Arthur, and told him his idea. "Father, I want to practice the knight's breathing method and become a glorious guardian knight." In front of Arthur, Chenmu said solemnly, without a trace of joking in his tone, only seriousness and solemnity. In the Kingdom of Winter, family knights are also called guardian knights, and they are passed down from generation to generation. Basically, every son of a Grand Duke, or the son of a Marquis, will give priority to becoming a guardian knight, because the candidate who inherits the position of Lord is first selected from the family's guardian knights. If no one in this generation becomes a guardian knight, then they will settle for the next best thing. The Weasley family is called the Golden Lion family, and naturally they also have an inherited breathing method, which is the Golden Lion breathing method, that appeared in Chenmu's simulation. Seeing that his son Willie Weasley's eyes did not seem to be fake, Arthur's eyes were more satisfied and gentle. He gently reached out to help Chenmu in front of him, and then said, "I am very pleased that you have this idea, but the knight's breathing method has requirements for physical fitness and knight skills. You can go to guard William and let him teach you horseback archery and swordsmanship. I will teach you the breathing method when your physical fitness and knight skills meet the requirements." There was a hint of relief in Earl Arthur's tone, as if he saw himself many years ago in Chenmu. He was also so unwavering and so full of confidence. After hearing what his father Arthur said, Chenmu bowed and left. This was the answer he wanted. His physical fitness is now at the peak of a Quasi-Knight, and what he lacks now is the knight skills. I don't know when I can simulate it again. Now what Chenmu has to do is to master the knight skills as soon as possible and practice breathing. The ultimate goal is definitely to activate the life seed and become a real knight. P.S. I will write a few hundred more words for the chapters with text simulation, so don't worry about the author's water word count. Chapter 3 New Simulation Times. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 New Number of Simulations. Seeking for further reading. Point 3 Great suns hung in the sky, and the radiance from the great sun dyed the entire sky crimson. July 492 of the winter calendar. This month is also called the burning moon, which means the hottest month of the year. There was not a trace of wind, and the thick air seemed to be frozen, and under the scorching red sun, in the Whaley manor, a young and handsome man was shirtless, holding a silver-white sword in his hand and waving it awkwardly. Sweat slid down Chenmu's angular muscles, and Chenmu panted slightly. Practicing swordsmanship in such weather was unbearable even for Chenmu's physique because it was too hot. It's hard to imagine how those people wearing heavy armor would be able to carry it off if a Lord War was launched in this month. He has not forgotten that the cause of his death in the last simulation was the Lord's War. In the past few days, he has also investigated which territory has greater conflicts with the Far East territory, but he has gained very little. Chenmu stopped waving the long sword, returned the silver-white long sword in his hand to the scabbard, and put it back on the sword stand in the courtyard. "It's already very good, Whaley. It's already good that you can barely practice simple swordsmanship routines in more than half a month. You have great talent in the knight's path." Seeing Chenmu stop practicing, William Conley said with a slight smile on his face, with a hint of relief in his tone. William is the head of the bodyguard of Chenmu's father, Earl Arthur. He is a great knight who has activated the seed of life and has gone a long way on this path. Some people who had trouble with the Far East territory called this right-hand man who had been Earl Arthur's guard for 30 years the Knight of the Greedy Wolf. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Willie Weasley was the one William watched growing up. Seeing that this young master has embarked on the same path as his former master, it is no wonder that he feels happy. "Your Excellency William, Willie is deeply grateful for your generous teachings during this period. I will not disappoint you and my father's expectations. I will do my best to become a glorious guardian knight." Chenmu clenched his right hand on his left chest and said solemnly, combining all the memories of his predecessor. Chenmu understood that people here seemed to attach great importance to these superficial skills. Sure enough, when he heard Chenmu's words, William's eyes smiled even more, and he happily patted Chenmu on the shoulder. William said goodbye to Chenmu. In addition to teaching Chenmu every day, he had other things to deal with. A great knight is an extremely noble existence no matter where he is. Seeing William leaving, Chenmu took a bath in the small bath in the manor and changed into clean clothes. More than half a month later, his rejection of water has become minimal. After taking a bath, Chenmu gently wiped the water stains on his blonde hair with a handkerchief. The next moment, a transparent light curtain appeared in front of him. Name, Chenmu. Spirit, 1.3, Physique, 2.1, Realm, Quasi-Knight, Pseudo, Witchcraft, None, Knight Skills, Basic Swordsmanship, Introductory 12/100, Number of Simulations, 1, there are new simulation times. The moment he saw the transparent light curtain, Chenmu felt happy. He would open the panel and take a look at it every day, just to see if any new simulation times would appear. Unexpectedly, it actually appeared today. After calming down, Chenmu was not in a hurry to start the next simulation. Instead, he was thinking a little in his heart, wondering why there was suddenly another simulation opportunity. Chenmu racked his brains to think, but he couldn't think of anything special about today. After all, today's activity trajectory is the same as more than half a month ago. If there was anything special, could it be that I ate one more apple pie and drank one more glass of milk than usual in the morning? Chenmu shook his head to remove this idea. It was really too unreliable. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration appeared in Chenmu's mind, allowing him to instantly grasp the key to the problem. 1 month. Today is the first month of activating the simulator. Is this simulation once a month? It seems that the specifics will have to wait until this time next month. Chenmu felt that this was most likely the case. If you insist on saying that there is any difference between today and the past days, then the only possibility is that today is the 30th day that he has been bound to the simulator, which is commonly known as a month. He didn't know whether the simulation times of the simulator could be superimposed, but he still planned to use this simulation number first. After all, it is necessary to improve your strength earlier. The next moment, a string of black words appeared in front of him. Do you want to enable life simulation? Yes. Chenmu did not hesitate and answered yes in his heart. The blue light curtain disappeared, and a string of black words began to appear in front of Chenmu. Chenmu looked at it very carefully, making sure that he would not leave anything behind. Life simulation has been started. Because the simulator version is too low, only text simulation is supported. 17 years old, you have adapted to the new environment and have a physique like a Quasi-Knight. You begin to practice riding, archery and swordsmanship. 18 years old, because of his extremely high physical fitness, your riding, archery and swordsmanship skills have improved by leaps and bounds, and you have reached the level of a knight's apprentice in just 1 year. 19 years old, in just 2 years, you have reached the standard for practicing breathing techniques. Your father Arthur Weasley calls you the most talented knight in the Weasley family in the past 300 years. 21 years old, after practicing breathing techniques for 2 years, you still cannot activate the seed of life. You want to take a secret medicine to forcefully activate the seed of life. 22 years old, your father Arthur Weasley rejected your request, but in order to prevent you from being disappointed, he taught you the Weasley family's ancestral knight skill Lion Heart //. Chapter 4 Golden Lion Breathing Method and Peak Quasi-Knight, please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Golden Lion Breathing Method and Peak Quasi-Knight, please read on. The Far East Territory covers an extremely large area. The entire territory looks like a soaring eagle when viewed from above, so it is also called Eagle Ridge. Taiwan Novel Network. The Golden Lion Manor where Chenmu and Earl Arthur live is located in the heart of this eagle. The sun is scorching, and there is not a cloud or a breeze in the red sky, in the small training ground in the manor. Chenmu holds a heavy sword and practices the skills brought to him by the second simulation alone. The improvement brought to Chenmu by the second simulation is undoubtedly huge. Chenmu's moves and styles make the surrounding condensed air produce sonic booms. Chenmu instinctively uses the Golden Lion breathing method with every breath he takes. You can vaguely see a stream of air being sucked in by his nose and then exhaled. If Chenmu is now wearing heavy armor and given a warhorse, he can even be on par with a formal knight. What is a formal knight? Even without armor, a formal knight can knock down hundreds of ordinary people with bare hands. If he has a handy long sword, even hundreds of people can't get close to him. This is the knight of this world. In the simulation, Chenmu fought 2 formal knights on the front battlefield. Although he died in the hands of the great knight in the end, it is enough to show how strong he is, during this period, because the trivial matters of the territory were handled by Chenmu's father, Earl Arthur. Chenmu could practice his skills every day with peace of mind. However, he did not expose his strength as a peak Quasi-Knight, because that was too shocking. If his father, Arthur, knew about it, the first thought would definitely not be that he was an ancient genius, but whether his son Willie would become a wizard's experiment. After all, except for wizards, who can transform an ordinary person into a peak Quasi-Knight within a month, no one else can do it. After the daily training, Chenmu subconsciously called out the panel, and the panel turned into a blue light screen in front of him. Name, Chenmu. Spirit, 1.3. Constitution, 2.2. Realm, peak Quasi-Knight. Witchcraft, none. Breathing method, Golden Lion breathing method, proficient 23/800. Knight skills, Lion Heart / proficient 42/800, basic riding. Proficient 123/800, basic archery, proficient 410/800, basic swordsmanship, mastery 522/1600, basic combat, mastery 113/1600. Number of simulations, 0. The panel is attached to the simulator and will be adjusted according to his understanding. So after Chenmu obtained the night breathing method in the simulation, the panel also had an additional breathing method column. The same is true for proficiency. In Chenmu's memory, according to the degree of mastery of a skill, it is divided into 4 levels from bottom to top: entry, proficient, mastery, and perfection. After taking a look at the panel, he found that there was no big change. Chenmu's mind moved, and the light screen disappeared in front of him. It was almost noon, and it was Chenmu's mealtime. Back to his own small manor restaurant, Chenmu was the only one sitting at the round table in the restaurant. In front of him were silver plates with roasted venison and white bread, some fruits, and even a small bottle of fruit wine on the side. Since becoming a Quasi-Knight, Chenmu's appetite has doubled compared to before, so he hasn't eaten with his father for a while. Most of the time he eats alone, and the chef in the manor will prepare the meal in advance and send it to him. Chenmu cut a piece of venison with a knife and fork, put it in his mouth with white bread, chewed it a few times and swallowed it directly. He didn't pay much attention to eating. To be honest, he was more used to using chopsticks than knives and forks. Too luxurious. Chenmu sighed in his heart. The food he ate every day was a lot of gold coins, but his father, Earl Arthur, never asked about these things. In the heart of his father, Earl Arthur, it was okay even if Chenmu ate 1 bite and spit 1 bite. This was the benefit of traveling through time and becoming a noble in the kingdom. In the hearts of the lower-class people in the kingdom, Chenmu's life was a life they could never dream of. In the memory of his previous life, the lower-class people in the kingdom would worry about every meal, and their daily food was dry and hard black bread. After lunch, William Conley found Chenmu with a smile on his face, but today he was not here to teach Chenmu knightly skills, but to bring Chenmu a message. 2 days later is the hunting day of the East River province. Many noble children will participate in this hunting. Do you want to go with them to gain some experience? Hunting day. Chenmu was stunned, and the next moment the memory of the hunting day emerged, and his eyes showed a look of realization. The East River province is considered a province with extremely rich resources in the Kingdom of Winter, and the territory of Chenmu's father, Earl Arthur, is within the East River province. This rich land will naturally not be controlled by Chenmu's father alone. In Chenmu's memory, Dongha province had a marquis, 4 earls, and some viscounts. As for barons, Dongha province did not have any, because the barons' fiefs were mostly in those mountainous and ravine areas with poor land. In the kingdom, the nobles also had classes. Fiefdoms with warm rainwater and fertile farmland would naturally be controlled by nobles with higher power, because these areas would bring abundant food. As for those areas with mountains and ravines and barren land, most of them were fiefdoms of small nobles because of the lack of food. Hunting Day is an event that the noble children in the East River province flock to every year. Hunting is of course a real hunt, but most of the aristocratic children participating in this activity do so for social purposes, that is, to make connections and pave the way for their future. After all, decades later, those who control various territories in the East River province are likely to be the noble children who hunted together at the beginning, in Chenmu's memory, his eldest brother always participated in the early hunting days. In recent years, the Golden Lion family has been absent from several hunting days since his eldest brother traveled to the kingdom. The original owner had never participated in these so-called hunting days. Chenmu is not stupid either. This time William came to him and said such words must be what his father, Earl Arthur, meant. Seeing that Chenmu did not speak, William still said with a smile, "Whaley, my master means that you can go and experience this hunting day. The Marquis of Dawn and the descendants of many counts will participate in this hunt. This hunt will be a good experience for you." Hearing this, how could Chenmu not understand what it meant? Although he didn't care much about this hunting day, he still said solemnly, "I won't let my father down." While speaking, his right fist was clenched on his left chest, and his eyes showed just the right amount of perseverance and confidence of a young man. Chenmu understood that his father, Earl Arthur, wanted him to get to know some other noble children on this hunting day, which could be said to be paving the way for his future. Of course he couldn't refuse, although it would not have much impact if he refused. It would inevitably make his father, Earl Arthur, a little disappointed in him, so Chenmu agreed without much hesitation. After all, this so-called hunting day was just a formality for him. His future will definitely not be to sit in one place and become a count. To borrow a saying from his previous life, his future is the sea of stars. William was very satisfied with Chenmu's performance. In the past, Chenmu had always been a child in his eyes, but this month of getting along with him made William understand that his young master was no ordinary person. At least there are some qualities in Chenmu that even Count Arthur does not have, so he said with relief, "I will pick you up tomorrow. This time I will go with you and serve as a guard." After hearing this, Chenmu nodded to express his understanding. Naturally, Chenmu would not go alone on the hunting day. Even if Chenmu wanted to go alone, Count Arthur would not agree. After all, in Earl Arthur's heart, gaining knowledge and making connections are secondary, and Chenmu's safety comes first. Even among the heirs of an earl, there are very few people who can be escorted by the great knight himself. Just from the fact that Earl Arthur asked William to serve as a bodyguard to personally escort Chenmu was enough to show his concern for Chenmu. Seeing William leaving, Chenmu returned to the training ground, picked up the épée and regained his stance. Chapter 5 Golden Lion Garden and Sun Mountain. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Golden Lion Garden and Sunday Mountain. Please read later. August 492 of the winter calendar. In the Winter Kingdom, August of each year is also called the harvest month, which means the harvest season. In this month, the scorching climate will slowly disappear. Google search for TWKAN, the red sky turned light red, and a breeze blew from time to time. At this time, Chenmu was changing into formal clothes with the help of a maid. Inside was a long sleeve that wrapped around both arms and a luxurious smock that reached the ankles. This was the standard clothing for the nobles of the Winter Kingdom. Outside was a long coat for men. The long coat was also called a Roman shirt and was made of extremely precious silk. In addition to preventing sunlight reflection, the long coat also had the effect of preventing the temperature of the armor from rising due to direct sunlight, so in wartime, the long coat would be worn outside the armor. On the surface of the long coat, there is a golden lion emblem representing the Weasley family. The emblem is complex and gorgeous, adding a unique temperament to Chenmu. There is a sword belt around the waist of the long coat. The sword belt is a belt used to hang a long sword, which is integrated with the long coat, and Chenmu's waist is naturally hung with a silver-white knight sword. The knight sword has no scabbard. It is a standard double-edged sword with a total length of about 90 centimeters. There is nothing special about the shoes. As usual, Chenmu wears a pair of pointed shoes. Pointed shoes are shoes with pointed front ends. Chenmu put on a formal suit with the help of the maid. On this hunting day, he represents the face of the Weasley family, so he naturally cannot dress casually as usual. Chenmu, wearing a formal suit, is less casual and more majestic than usual. Seeing the maid blushing and leaving, Chenmu also got up and walked out. William was already waiting for Chenmu outside the manor. Unlike Chenmu's luxurious clothes, William wore light armor and a heavy sword hung around his waist. Seeing Mtnovel coming out, William moved his eyes to him, with a touch of surprise and trance in his eyes. "It's so similar, exactly the same as the old master." William's trance recovered in just a moment. He seemed to see Earl Arthur 30 years ago on Mtnovel. It was the same clothes, but at that time he was just a small guard behind Earl Arthur. "Please follow me, Master Willie." William unconsciously changed his address, then turned and walked in front of Mtnovel. The noble carriage was outside the big manor, and there was still a distance from the small manor where Mtnovel lived, and this time the destination, Daytime Mountain, was not too far from here. It would take less than a day to reach the destination by taking a carriage on the main road. Mtnovel followed William with a relaxed look. Outside the manor was the Golden Lion Garden of the Weasley family. Passing through the Golden Lion Garden was where the carriage was parked. Passing by the Golden Lion Garden, Mtnovel looked around. In Mtnovel's memory, this place was not a garden. This garden was built by his father, Earl Arthur, specifically for Mtnovel's mother, Lando of Ai, but since the death of Mtnovel's mother, Lando, few people come here except for the gardener and the maid. The Golden Lion Garden can definitely be regarded as a large garden. There are hundreds of marble columns around the garden to form a corridor, and 2 square pavilions protrude from the east and west ends, which are extremely luxurious and exquisite. Each marble column has exquisite openwork carvings. If you look closely, you can even find that each openwork carving is different. The cross-shaped canal divides the garden into 4 equal parts, with a lion fountain in the center. There are 12 marble lions carved around the circular marble water basin. The stone lions are majestic and impressive. These stone lions were carved by a great knight himself with a sword. The garden has a herb garden and a vegetable garden. Some ornamental plants were trimmed into the symbol of the Golden Lion family emblem by the gardener, and a large number of flowers and trees were planted in the garden to form a vivid color effect. Although he had many memories of this garden, seeing it with his own eyes still brought a great shock to Mtnovel. William saw that Mtnovel's pace slowed down, so he turned his head to look at him. After seeing Mtnovel's eyes, William thought that Mtnovel was thinking of his deceased mistress, so he could only sigh in his heart. In William's memory, Willie's mother Lando was extremely fond of Master Willie when she was alive. Almost everything was done by himself, and a large part of the reason why Master Willie was not used to being taken care of by maids and servants was because of his deceased mother, so he subconsciously slowed down his pace and did not make a sound to break Mtnovel's thoughts. Time passed. Although William deliberately slowed down, the two of them were still fast, and soon arrived at the place where the carriage was parked. Mtnovel sat in the carriage engraved with the Golden Lion family emblem, and William also climbed on the horse. Most of the horses used by the Weasley family to pull the carriages are winter war horses. This kind of horse is extremely fast and has great endurance, so it is not a problem for them to travel 1,000 miles a day. Snap! William whipped the whip, and the carriage began to move. The carriages of the nobles are extremely stable, not to mention that they are on the main road, and Mtnovel, who is sitting in the carriage, can't even feel the bumps. The carriage is not slow, and Mtnovel and William will probably arrive at the Sun Mountain area in the early morning of the next day. Hunting day is actually the time when this activity starts, so it is okay even if they arrive a few days later. Before the hunting begins, there will be a banquet at noon tomorrow, and the dance will be in the evening, which is more than enough time. As for the official hunting in the mountains, it will be within 15 days after the hunting day begins. So Mtnovel will have to leave the Far East territory for at least 15 days this time, but with William as his guard, his safety can be assured. After all, in the kingdom, the Great Knight is already the strongest group of people on the surface. Except for the legendary epic knights and wizards, no one can hurt Mtnovel under William's guard. As for the epic knights and wizards, the possibility of their appearance is very small. There are only a few epic knights in the entire kingdom, and there is not even one in the wizard kingdom. Few wizards will leave the wizard continent and come to the barren secondary continent. Even if there are, they rarely appear in the winter kingdom. After all, the winter kingdom is not a big country on the secondary continent. As for the wizard apprentice who cursed the original owner before, it was actually the original owner Willie's bad luck. Maybe the wizard apprentice just happened to pass by here, and he has a bad temper. There was white bread and butter cheese prepared in the carriage, and Mtnovel would eat some when he was hungry. If he could activate the life seed and become a formal knight, then he would not have so many requirements for high-calorie food. At least Chen Mu did not see William eating during this journey. The sun set, and the carriage did not stop at night. The night vision of the great knight was extremely strong, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he could see the night as day. The next day, 3 big suns rose one after another, and the dazzling sunlight overlooked the earth. Chen Mu and William also arrived at the range of Daytime Mountain. Daytime Mountain belongs to the Dawn territory, which is the territory of the Marquis of Dawn. However, this place only occupies a small part of the territory of the Marquis of Dawn. The final destination of Chen Mu's trip was the castle of the Marquis of Dawn in Daytime Mountain, where the banquet and dance were also held. When he arrived at the place, William parked the carriage in the horse farm specially for parking carriages, where many carriages of other families were already parked. Chen Mu looked around. Some of the family emblems on the carriages were unfamiliar even in his memory. He could only recognize the family emblem of the Carlos family. The Carlos family was the family of the garden Count Melicalos, and the family emblem was a wreath of lavender. Chen Mu did not forget that it was the men of the garden Count who killed him in the simulation. Seeing Chen Mu coming down, the maid in a long skirt immediately greeted him. There were many maids in the horse farm. These maids were sent by the Marquis of Dawn to lead the way for the noble children, so Chen Mu followed the maid, and William lagged behind Chen Mu half a step and walked towards the direction of the Marquis's castle. Please read. Chapter 6, Melicalos and the Banquet. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. D. Carlos and Banquet. Please read later. The Moor Castle of the Marquis of Dawn is located on the top of the Sun Mountain. The Moor Castle is built on the mountain and perfectly blends with the surrounding forest. It is extremely magnificent. Chen Mu followed the maid up the steep mountain road, climbed to the top of the mountain, crossed the wooden bridge over the mountain stream, passed through the arched city gate, and enter the castle forecourt with a different world. Here, there is no more majestic view of the castle from afar. It is more like stepping into an ancient manor, high towers, city walls, pools, and corridors. The wooden structure of the house makes the castle more antique. There are exquisite reliefs on the walls of the castle, and fully armed armored guards stand on both sides of the castle. Chen Mu followed the maid through the middle door and entered the backyard of the castle. Here you can see the main building of the castle and 2 magnificent towers. This is the castle where the banquet is held. Before Chen Mu came here, there were already many young people in aristocratic costumes talking in low voices. If you can climb to the top of the 2 towers, you can even have a panoramic view of the entire Daytime Mountain forest. In the main building of the castle, there are vaulted rooms, chapels, and halls for reciting poems and singing in the architectural style of the Kingdom of Winter, coupled with the ornately carved stone pillars and corridors. Chen Mu was somewhat amazed by the amazing architectural skills. Seeing Chen Mu and William introduced by the maid, some noble disciples looked at Chen Mu. There was surprise, awe, and envy in these eyes, because Chen Mu was too dazzling at this time. Blonde hair and blue eyes, tall and straight, and a set of luxurious clothes. Compared with Chen Mu, they seemed not so noble. Their eyes only stayed for a moment and then moved away. After all, it is extremely rude to keep staring at a person. Those present are all the leaders of various noble families, so naturally there will be no such rude behavior. Chen Mu was not in a hurry to integrate into the circle of these nobles. Some things can't be rushed, not to mention that his original intention was actually to go through the motions. Seeing Chen Mu not moving, William thought that Chen Mu was not familiar with the people here, so he whispered in Chen Mu's ear. Master Willie, the one with black hair and blue eyes is the son of Earl Black Snake, the one with brown-red hair is the son of Earl Garden, the one with 2 crossed swords embroidered on his clothes is a nobleman of the Rose family, the eagle-like family emblem is the family emblem of the Blue Eagle family. As a guard who has followed Earl Arthur for more than 30 years, William knows all the information about these nobles. In just a few words, he told Chen Mu the identity of the noble in front of him. After listening, Chen Mu nodded and glanced at the nobles, then he stopped his gaze on the red-haired man. The knight standing behind the red-haired man seemed to notice Chen Mu's gaze and suddenly turned to look at Chen Mu, but after seeing that it was Chen Mu, he turned his gaze to William behind Chen Mu. The coldness in his eyes disappeared, turned into a faint smile, and nodded slightly to William. William seemed to see Chen Mu's strangeness, and said softly, "That is the great knight Lime Shiwazi of the Garden family, who is also my good friend." the Master and the Earl of the Garden are close friends, and they traveled together in the kingdom for several years in their early years. The Golden Lion family and the Garden family have been friends for hundreds of years. Although Chenmu's expression did not change after hearing this, there was still a ripple in his heart. He did not expect that Lime Shiwazi, who killed him in the simulation, would appear in front of him so soon. The reason why Earl Arthur failed in the Lord War more than 10 years later was probably that he did not expect the betrayal of Earl of the Garden. After all, the two families have been friends for hundreds of years, and the two are close friends. It is hard to imagine. Even if Chenmu told his father now that Earl of the Garden would betray their friendship and attack the Far East territory in the future, his father would probably not believe it. Chenmu also wanted to see if some behaviors in reality would change the simulated life, and this hunting day would be a good opportunity. It seemed that because of Chenmu's gaze just now, the red-haired young man chatted with the person in front of him for a few more words and then walked towards Chenmu with a smile. Approaching Chenmu, the red-haired man spoke gently. "Hello, Willie, I am Melicalos. This should be the first time we meet, but I heard your elder brother mention you." Melicalos' etiquette was also in place. While speaking, he put his right hand on his chest and bowed his waist gently. Formal social interaction is inevitable, and Chenmu also wanted to inquire about some news from Melicalos, so the two chatted with great interest. However, Melicalos was really interested, while Chenmu pretended to be interested. Seeing that the two disciples quickly became friends, William and Lime also leaned aside and chatted easily. There were more and more people in the backyard, and the banquet was about to begin. When the banquet was about to start, Meli still felt a little unsatisfied. It was really interesting to chat with Chenmu. Some things were always said by Chenmu in extremely special sentences, and some of them even he couldn't understand. Chenmu said that it was special. After all, it was the language art of China for 5,000 years in the previous life. It would be strange if you could understand it. Chenmu also gained a lot from this conversation, and Melicalos was not on guard against him at all, so Chenmu even knew how many troops the Earl of Garden had. This was not the troops that were displayed in public, but the troops that were hidden in secret. Melicalos told Chenmu all of this. Although he didn't know whether it was true, Chenmu still gave him a thumbs up in his heart when he saw Melicalos' solemn promise. Mary, right? He is undoubtedly a filial son. The banquet was about to begin, and everyone in the venue gradually stopped talking and entered the banquet hall of the castle together. Chenmu and Mary walked side by side, and the two great knights followed behind them. Chenmu had lived 2 lives and had a very accurate eye for people. After a conversation, he had already understood that this Mary was like the children of most noble families, proficient in etiquette and communication. He was even a knight apprentice, but he was a young man with no thoughts. His dream was to inherit the Earl's position and then eat and wait for death. From Mary, Chenmu could hardly associate what kind of person Mary's father, the Earl of Garden, was. Entering the banquet hall, Chenmu and Meli sat down. All the nobles present sat according to their status. Sitting at the top was the host of the banquet, the youngest daughter of the Marquis of Dawn, Naelian Lilith. The banquet hall had a U-shaped angular dining table covered with a white linen tablecloth, and Chenmu and other people attending the banquet sat along the outside of the large dining table. This allows the servants to serve and serve dishes smoothly in the middle area. This arrangement also allows the guests to easily keep up with the progress of the banquet. On a raised platform in the middle of the banquet hall, there is a huge dining table, which is the main table. The main table is exclusively for the host of the banquet and Chenmu and other noble children. Behind this main table, there is an extremely luxurious cover cloth hanging, highlighting the status of Chenmu and other nobles. The wine is placed on a dining table near the central main table. The servants responsible for serving wine start from the main table and pour wine in turn. Looking at the amber wine in the silver-white wine glass in front of him, Chenmu sighed slightly. After pouring the wine, servants in Lilith family uniforms came in with various dishes for the first course. There were a lot of dishes on the banquet, from desserts to meat, up to more than a dozen dishes, and each dish contained dozens of different dishes. Each dish was made by a master chef himself, which was extremely luxurious. The amount of food and the number of dishes alone can reflect the wealth and status of the Marquis of Dawn to a large extent. The gold coins spent on this banquet alone are more than an ordinary person can earn in a lifetime. When serving the dishes, the servants will shout out the name of each dish. The Lilith family prepared a special spoon engraved with the family emblem for each noble child. which was used to drink soup and sauce, and a table knife for cutting solid food. The noble children present will have a special Lilith family servant who will directly put the food on their plates. As for the noble servants, they would take their own food from the same large plate. However, the servants would not object. After all, this was the tradition of the hunting day banquet, and it had not changed for hundreds of years. Please read on. Chapter 7, Naelian Lilith and the Hunt begins. Please read. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7, Naelian Lilith and the Hunt begins. Please read. After a full meal, Chenmu took a sip of his after-dinner wine. Chenmu thought it was just a simple banquet, but he still underestimated the luxury of the kingdom's nobles. There were a variety of dishes, some of which Chenmu had never heard of, let alone seen. There were even some dishes with complex food ingredients and fantasy colors at the banquet, for example, a roasted swan. The chef reglued clean feathers, and the feathers were decorated with silver and gold. Chenmu also saw a peacock that looked like it was alive being served on the table. The roasted peacock was still covered with beautiful feathers, supported by a stick, and stood upright on a plate. The maid of the Lilith family put a bunch of wheat straw soaked in alcohol in the peacock's mouth, and then lit it, creating a fantasy scene of a peacock breathing fire when it was served on the table. Another dish was to make 2 pigeons out of 1 pigeon. The chef peeled the pigeon's skin and wrapped it with a mixture of cheese, eggs, spices and raisins. Then the pigeon's skin was sewn together and the new pigeon was cooked in boiling water. Next, the chef would roast the real pigeon that had been skinned, and halfway through the roasting, it was coated with a mixture of bread crumbs and then glazed with egg liquid. In this way, 1 pigeon was made into 2 dishes. It must be said that the luxury and power of the kingdom's nobles were fully reflected in this banquet. Finally, when leaving, they tasted some light snacks, cakes, candied fruits and nuts, which was the so-called departure dessert. In other words, the banquet started with dessert and ended with dessert. After the banquet, Chenmu and Meli walked out of the banquet hall together. They also had to attend a dance party in the evening. There was no way, this was inevitable for nobles to socialize, even if Chenmu was not very interested in these. I don't know if it's an illusion, but Chenmu always feels that Naelian Lilith, the daughter of the Marquis of Dawn, seemed to look at him several times at the banquet. The Dawn family prepared specific rooms for all the nobles who participated in the hunting day. Chenmu found the room with the Golden Lion family's emblem and flag hanging and walked in. Chenmu didn't have too many requirements for living, but this did not affect the extreme luxury of these rooms. He took a book History of Kingdom Architecture from the bookshelf. Chenmu sat on a wooden chair and gently turned the pages. William and Chenmu were not in the same room, and the guards also had their own rooms. William's room was next to Chenmu. The arrangement of the guards' room was also to ensure that the guards could react in time in case of an accident. The Lilith family had considered everything carefully. Time passed, and it was night in a blink of an eye. Moor Castle has a ballroom dedicated to holding balls. When Chenmu arrived, there were already quite a few people here. Mary was already holding a glass of wine and chatting with a girl. Judging from the expressions of the two, the chat seemed to be going well. Seeing Chenmu coming in, Mary hurriedly introduced the girl to Chenmu. Villi, this is Fenlin Kosiri, the daughter of Viscount Silverflower. Fenlin, this is Willie Weasley, the son of Earl of Golden Lion. Hearing Mary introduce each other, Chenmu and Fenlin smiled and greeted each other. The etiquette in the ball is not complicated, and exchanging names is just the norm. The ball has not started yet, so the three of them chatted quietly. After a while, 2 more people joined in, forming a small social circle. This is why Earl of Golden Lion wanted Chenmu to participate in this hunting day. In the eyes of Earl of Golden Lion, making friends with nobles from other families is helpful to Chenmu. After a while, the ball began, and the musicians of the Dawn family entered the ballroom to play beautiful music. The musicians of the Dawn family are all formal court musicians. Some of the musicians have even played in a palace, so the music they play is naturally pleasant and moving. Meli also invited Fenlin to the dance floor, while Chenmu stood there with a glass of sweet wine. Chenmu was undoubtedly one of the most eye-catching people at the ball, so naturally, there were many girls who looked at Chenmu frequently, as if they wanted to come forward and invite him to dance, but they lacked confidence. Sir Whaley, can you dance with me? That the gentle voice that suddenly came from behind made Chenmu subconsciously turn his head to look. The next second, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. The one who made the invitation was Naelian Lilith, the daughter of the Marquis of Dawn. At this time, she was completely different from the majestic her at the banquet. At this time, Naelian Lilith was wearing a flowing silk dress, and her figure was tall and slender. The long silver hair was delicately braided into a bun, and her red lips were slightly raised with a smile. A pair of bright eyes looked at Chenmu, exuding unconcealed confidence and nobility. Her snow-white skin set off her deep pupils and slender nose, making her look like a perfect sculpture. Chenmu naturally had no reason to refuse, as the son of the Earl, although Chenmu could not be said to be proficient in ballroom dancing, he was not unfamiliar with it. Naturally, many people in the dance hall noticed this scene. Seeing Chenmu agree, the men's eyes inevitably showed more envy and jealousy. The eyes of the noble girls showed a trace of disappointment and regret. If they had known that Chenmu would agree so easily, they would have also joined. In the dance floor, Chenmu and Naelian were dancing ballroom dance. Chenmu could feel that the girl in front of him didn't seem to be proficient in ballroom dance, so the two of them were very slow, but surprisingly consistent. During the dance, Chenmu maintained a suitable distance and posture, and was not too close. Politeness and gentlemanly demeanor were fully reflected in him, his words and deeds also made Naelian Lilith feel sincere and respected. Unlike the people Naelian had met before, she could feel that Chenmu's eyes were clean, without a trace of impurities. In fact, when Naelian saw Chenmu for the first time at the banquet, she had a good impression of Chenmu in her heart. Now it can be said that the impression is better, and she even has the idea of informing her father and marrying Chenmu's family. But after thinking about it, Naelian still kept this idea in her heart. After all, including the banquet, this was only the second time they met. As the most beloved youngest daughter of the Marquis of Dawn, Naelian even has the right to choose marriage that other noble girls have never had. From here, we can see how much the Marquis of Dawn dotes on her. In the eyes of some nobles, daughters are just bargaining chips for marriage, but in the Dawn family, the Marquis of Dawn does not need to sell his daughter to improve his power and status, so he completely gave the right to choose love to Naelian. This is unimaginable in the eyes of many nobles. After a social dance, Naelian blushed. You know, Naelian has hosted 3 hunting days in a row, but it is her first time to invite others to dance. She usually just showed up at the dance and never really danced on the dance floor, so she looked a little unfamiliar. Her face was blushing, partly because of shyness, and partly because she was a little flustered at the end of the dance, and felt embarrassed in front of Chenmu. "Princess Naelian, your dance is very beautiful. This time dancing with you will definitely make me unforgettable forever." Chenmu saw the embarrassment of the girl and spoke gently, with a clear and bright look in his eyes. In the Kingdom of Winter, the title of princess is not exclusive to the princess. The daughters of the Marquis and the Earl can also be called princesses. Naelian looked up at Chenmu. What she saw was Chenmu's bright eyes. At that moment, a throbbing rose in her heart. After the ball, Chenmu returned to the exclusive room prepared by the Dawn family. It seems that Chenmu's work and rest schedule is very regular, and he does not have the habit of staying up late in his previous life. The next day, Chenmu got up early, washed up and dressed in formal clothes. Today is the day when hunting begins. Starting today, the nobles can go into the mountains for hunting. You can enter alone, or you can form a small group to enter together. The Dawn family has prepared a variety of armor and bows and arrows, which are all available to the nobles. Mary invited Chenmu to form a team, but Chenmu refused after consideration. After all, because of the simulation, he was not completely confident in Mary. Chenmu chose a set of light armor and a bow and arrow. The guards will follow on hunting days, but they will follow in secret. They will only appear when life is in danger, and will not help with hunting. After all, if the guards have to do hunting, then this hunting day is meaningless. But hunting is not particularly dangerous. The Sun Mountain has been cleaned up by the knights of the Dawn family, and there are no particularly dangerous beasts. After all, this is hunting, not suicide. Before entering the mountain, Chenmu looked around and did not find William. It would be too easy for the knight to follow him without being discovered. Lifting the longbow in his hand, Chenmu stepped into the Sun Mountain. Please read. Chapter 8 Giant-Toothed Boar and William's Shock. Please read later. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Giant-Toothed Boar and William's Shock. Seeking follow-up reading. A flash of silver light flashed, and an arrow flew through the air and into a bush. There was a rabbit foraging in the bush, with light gray fur, which was out of tune with the surrounding environment. The next moment, the gray rabbit seemed to sense something, and its hair stood up. A pair of gray pupils rolled around, as if wanting to jump up. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. But the arrow in the air was faster than it, the sound of cutting through the air flow sounded, a flash of blood splashed, and the gray rabbit was nailed to the spot. Chenmu put down the longbow and walked towards the gray rabbit. He reached out and pulled out the arrow stuck in the rabbit, and blood gushed out and dripped on the ground. When the blood had almost flowed out, Chenmu picked up the gray rabbit by its ears, and then used a long sword to dig out some soil to bury the blood. Gray velvet rabbit, it's not worth much. Chenmu picked up the gray rabbit and looked at it, then put the rabbit back to where it was. The prey you hunt can be carried by yourself, or you can leave it where it is and someone will collect it. After 15 days, all the values will be counted, and the person with the highest value of the prey will receive a considerable reward. The reward is secondary, and the person who ranks first will accumulate a lot of prestige in the hearts of the nobles. Bypassing the gray velvet rabbit, Chenmu headed deeper into the Sun Mountain. This hunt was a good experience for him, although it was impossible to truly test his strength as a peak Quasi-Knight, but it could also simply test his knight skills. For example, the arrow just now, William, who was following Chenmu from a distance, saw it clearly. He just taught Chenmu archery, but looking at the arrow shot by Chenmu, it was clearly a performance of skilled archery. However, although William was surprised, he did not think much about it. He could only attribute it to Chenmu's extremely high archery talent. Chenmu passed through the primeval forest and walked from the outer edge of Dede Mountain to the depths. Compared with the outer edge of Dede Mountain, there are more beasts in the depths of Dede Mountain. Although it has been cleared once, there are still many beasts that threaten humans. However, with William's protection, Chenmu can boldly move forward to the depths. In fact, even without William, Chenmu can go to the depths on his own. With the cultivation of a peak Quasi-Knight, few beasts can threaten his safety. The name Dede Mountain actually has a story. It is said that on a certain day of the year, 3 big suns will appear on the top of Dede Mountain at the same time, which is extremely brilliant and dazzling, so the Marquis of Dawn named it Dede Mountain. Dede Mountain used to be a sparsely populated place, but since it was designated as the territory of the Marquis of Dawn, it has been renovated. The Moor Castle standing on the top of the mountain is very famous in the entire Winter Kingdom. Even the Marquis of Dawn would come here a few days a year. Compared to the castle where the Marquis of Dawn lived, this place can be said to be extremely remote. Suddenly, Chenmu heard a rustling sound from the bushes in front of him. After entering the depths of Daytime Mountain, he was always alert and vigilant to the movements around him, so when the sound came from the huge bushes, Chenmu reacted immediately. He moved his feet and immediately appeared behind the big tree. The extremely thick trunk of the big tree can perfectly block Chenmu's body. Chenmu held his breath and leaned forward slightly. He saw a huge wild boar in his eyes. The wild boar was covered with dark brown bristles, with sideburns falling on its body, its eyes exposed, and the sideburns could not hide the strong muscles of the wild boar. 2 straight and long teeth opened outward, a full 40 or 50 centimeters. The fangs are eye-catching and sharp. The big and pointed ears stand upright on both sides of the head, and there are sharp short thorns on the tail. Megalodon, Chenmu whispered in his heart. The megalodon can be said to be an extremely powerful beast in the forest, and its huge size is the nightmare of countless people. Chenmu did not expect that there would be such a beast in the clear day mountain, but he was not too worried. The megalodon likes to live in dense bushes. It has an abnormal temper. The limbs of this wild boar are short and strong, so it is also very fast. The next moment, the megalodon's nose moved slightly, and the exposed eyes stared at the big tree where Chenmu was hiding. "I'm being stared at." At the moment he was stared at, Chenmu did not hesitate, and quickly reached out to take out an arrow from the quiver behind him. The next moment, Chenmu leaned back slightly and tightened his shoulders. Chenmu pulled the tight bowstring to its full extent in an instant. The bow was bent, and the joints of Chenmu's fingertips protruded, slightly widening because of the excessive force. In just a moment, Chenmu released the bowstring. A sharp sound rang out, and the arrow shot towards the side of the wild boar's abdomen like a flash of lightning. The position Chenmu aimed at was the softest part of the giant boar's body. This arrow that pierced the air was a fatal arrow. This scene, not only did the giant boar in front of him not react, even William, who was ready to take action at any time not far from Chenmu, was stunned. As expected, with a whistle and a crash, the arrow pierced straight into the giant boar's body from the side. The giant-toothed boar struggled to escape, but the arrow that pierced its body made it fall to the ground and unable to move after only 2 steps. Scarlet blood gushed out like a spring, as it struggled and twitched violently. The blood dyed the soil around it red. The painful roar was the last sound it left in this world. With the skilled archery skills of the peak Quasi-Knight, Chen Mu shot a giant-toothed boar that was comparable to a Quasi-Knight with 1 arrow. How is it possible? Your strength. Chen Mu felt a gust of wind blowing, and William appeared in front of him. William's face was full of shock and disbelief. At this time, he didn't care whether it was a hunting day or not. The young master's strength was obviously abnormal. He was afraid that Chen Mu had taken some secret medicine with sequelae in order to improve his strength. Secret medicines are absolutely not taken casually. Most secret medicines that are not compatible with breathing methods have serious sequelae after taking them. The next moment, William quickly took off Chen Mu's armor, pinched Chen Mu's wrist and touched the bones, and his face became more shocked. The bone strength of a peak Quasi-Knight. How is this possible, master? Tell me if you have taken any secret medicine. William's tone was extremely serious, and he was still holding Chen Mu's wrist in his hand. Chen Mu tried to break free and couldn't get rid of it, but Chen Mu was not surprised. When he showed his strength, he knew that this scene would happen. For this reason, he had already prepared a plan in his mind, so Chen Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sir William, don't worry too much. You can understand that I am born with supernatural power. My strength has always been great, but I haven't shown it. Until recently, after I came into contact with the Knight's Road, I found that my strength is more than 1 level greater than that of ordinary people. Hearing Chen Mu's words, William let go of Chen Mu's wrist, frowning and thinking. He seemed to remember something and looked at Chen Mu with a hint of surprise in his eyes. William instinctively believed what Chen Mu said, because he felt that Chen Mu had no need to deceive him about such things. He actually felt that he was a little too impulsive. The secret medicine was not so easy to obtain. He was too worried about Chen Mu just now, but he subconsciously ignored that Chen Mu had no channel to obtain the secret medicine. In the Kingdom of Winter, the secret medicine is a contraband. I don't know whether to say that you are lucky or unlucky, young master. It is not uncommon to be born with great strength. This situation has occurred many times in the history of the Kingdom of Winter. William's tone was a little hesitant, but after thinking about it, he continued. But as far as I know, it is very difficult for people with natural strength to activate the seeds of life and become knights. Among the hundreds of people with natural strength known in the kingdom, only 1 person has become a knight. After William finished speaking, he subconsciously looked at Chen Mu's face, as if he wanted to find disappointment on Chen Mu's face, but unlike what he thought, there was no disappointment on Chen Mu's face, but only calmness. Although Chen Mu's face did not change, he was also stunned in his heart. He knew his own affairs, and the natural strength was just something he made up. He thought William would not believe it. Who knew that there was really such a saying as natural strength? He would not be disappointed, because he was not born with supernatural power. He was just poor in talent, but with the simulator, his future would not be weaker than anyone else. But he still asked curiously. Sir William, do you know the only person who was born with great strength but became a knight? Hearing Chen Mu's words, William thought that Chen Mu was confident to emulate the person who was also born with great strength but became a knight. So he nodded gently. Birth Knight True Moss. An epic knight of the kingdom. Please read. Chapter 9 New Simulation and Official Knights. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 New Simulation and Formal Knight. Please read on. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Yenji.Shenyang. Deep in the Sunshine Mountain, a big tree stood in place. There were countless branches and leaves on the huge tree crown. The breeze blew, and the green leaves swayed gently in the wind, making a rustling sound. On the branch, a green venomous snake crawled slowly. The venomous snake had a flat head, a high nose bridge, and small and cunning eyes. The sunlight that could not be blocked by the leaves shone on the venomous snake with a strange light. The next moment, the sound of cutting through the air flow sounded, and the venomous snake was nailed to the tree by a sudden arrow. The venomous snake was covered with needle-like scales, a bit like fish scales. The moment it was hit, it opened its mouth and revealed two sharp fangs. The crazy wriggling was useless, and the wizard couldn't save it even if his head was shot through. Seeing that the venomous snake stopped struggling, Shenmue didn't approach. It was already the 7th day of the hunting day. After the hunting day started, Shenmue could be said to have been in the limelight. He couldn't hide the prey he hunted. At this time, everyone knew that the son of the Far Eastern Earl had the strength of a Quasi-Knight, and the more it spread, the more exaggerated it became. Now in their eyes, Shenmue was a formal knight. Mary also specifically asked Shenmue about it, and Shenmue just answered that it was a fluke. Naturally, no one would believe this. After all, it was okay to hunt a beast by chance, but it was a bit fake to hunt 3 beasts by chance. Now the eyes of the nobles looking at Shenmue unconsciously carried a trace of awe, and Mary's eyes even had unstoppable admiration. It can be said that the first place of this hunting day was already in Shenmue's pocket, but Shenmue didn't care too much about this. After all, his original intention of coming this time was just to go through the process, and these were all accidents. Putting away the longbow, Shenmue slowly walked towards the outskirts of Daytime Mountain. He didn't plan to stay here any longer, and it was meaningless to continue hunting. It just so happened that a new simulation opportunity had come, and Shenmue planned to use it as soon as possible. He felt that this simulation might have some different gains. Returning to the room prepared by the Dawn family in Moor Castle, Shenmue sat on the bench. The next moment, a transparent blue light screen appeared in front of him. Name, Shenmue. Spirit, 1.3. Constitution, 2.2. Level, Peak Quasi-Knight. Witchcraft, none. Breathing method, Golden Lion breathing method, proficient 32/800. Night skills, Lion Heart / proficient 42/800. Basic riding, proficient 128/800. Basic archery, proficient 630/800. Basic swordsmanship, mastery 523/1600. Basic combat, mastery 115/1600. Number of simulations, 1. The attribute panel did not change much. The number in the column representing the number of simulations changed from 0 to 1. If Shenmue was just suspicious last month, then now he can be sure that the number of simulations is exactly once every 30 days, because the number of simulations obtained this time is also 30 days away from the last time. If it is a coincidence once, then it can be basically confirmed that it is the same twice. Shenmue is still very satisfied with the simulation once a month. As long as the time to obtain the number of simulations does not increase exponentially, it is good news for him. Do you want to start the life simulation? Seeing this prompt, Shenmue answered yes in his heart without hesitation. Just like the previous 2 simulations, the blue light screen disappeared immediately. A string of black text appeared. Shenmue, who had experienced 2 simulations, naturally understood the process, so Shenmue held his breath and stared at the black font in front of him. He had to make sure he would not miss any information. Life simulation has been started. Because the simulator version is too low, only text simulation is supported. 17 years old, you won the first place on the hunting day, and accumulated a lot of prestige in the hearts of the nobles. Although your father was shocked by your natural strength, he did not doubt you and taught you the Golden Lion breathing method. 18 years old, after there was no resistance, you practiced the Golden Lion breathing method and reached the bottleneck at a very fast speed. You also won the first place on the hunting day this year, and your relationship with the daughter of the Marquis of Dawn quickly heated up. 19 years old, the realm of formal knight still stuck for you, but this year the daughter of the Marquis of Dawn, Naelian Lilith, got engaged to you. 20 years old, you and Naelian Lilith officially married, and the Golden Lion family and the Dawn family also reached an alliance. 21 years old, you indulged in the land of gentleness and reduced the amount of training. The usual 8 hours of training was shortened to 3 hours. 22 years old, still indulged in the land of gentleness. The road of knighthood seemed to be separated by a natural moat, but you did not force it, and dealt with training every day as if completing a task. 24 years old, your father allocated a territory in the Far East to you, and you became a lord. In the same year, your first daughter was born, and you named her Jasmine Weasley. 26 years old, you no longer polished your body. You think being a lord seems to be good, and you no longer worry about becoming a formal knight. Seeing this, Shenmue frowned slightly. It was really that he in the simulator was too different from him in reality. If he knew about the Lord War later, he should not be so lazy. It is very likely that some memories about the simulator were blocked in the simulation, so Shenmue kept silent and continued to read. 28 years old, you and your wife Naelian Lilith are in harmony, and the territory is well managed by you. In the same year, your first son was born, and you named him Zeus Weasley. 30 years old, you have both sons and daughters, own a territory, and your life is very comfortable. You haven't worn armor or touched a knight's sword for a year, and the number of times you meet your father has gradually decreased. 32 years old, as usual, but a big thing happened in the Golden Lion family. Your father passed the earldom to your eldest brother Nicholas Weasley. You attended the banquet. Your eldest brother did not take away your rights because he became an earl. You are the same as usual. 35 years old, the Lord War broke out. The one who initiated the war was the newly promoted Grand Duke of the Kingdom, Grand Duke Goshawk. This was a Lord War that swept the entire kingdom. 36 years old, in this sudden war, no one could escape. The first person in Dongha province to be involved in the war was Marquis Chensi, and the Golden Lion family was not spared. 37 years old, with the strength of a peak Quasi-Knight, you put on your armor again, picked up the heavy sword, and plunged into this Lord War. 39 years old, war is cruel, not to mention the fate of the kingdom epic knight. Your father, elder brother, wife, son, and daughter all died. You were also seriously injured and comatose, and fell into a state of suspended animation. When you climbed out of the pile of corpses, you were desperate. 40 years old, hatred made you fall into endless self-blame. There was only one idea in your heart that kept you alive, that was revenge. Your enemy was the Grand Duke Goshawk. Age 42, you joined a secret assassination organization in the kingdom and forgot your former name. Age 45, years of assassination experience and hidden injuries during the Lord War left you with scars all over your body. You used up all your savings to buy a bottle of secret medicine on the black market. Age 46, the probability of you successfully activating the seed of life after swallowing the secret medicine is less than 10%, but you are lucky. Driven by hatred, you successfully activated the seed of life and became a knight. Age 47, the sequelae of the secret medicine are huge. You only have 3 years to live. You began to plan a revenge plan against the Grand Duke of Goshawk. For this, you have been preparing for 7 years. Age 48, you got a bottle of gold poison on the black market. This venom is extracted from the fangs of a golden cobra, but it is too obvious to be used for assassination. Age 49, you racked your brains, conducted countless experiments, and used all your lifelong knowledge in your previous life to purify a bottle of real colorless and tasteless poison. 50 years old, after years of planning, you sneaked into the birthday party of the eldest son of the Grand Duke of Goshawk. You tampered with the food at the birthday party. Hatred made you think that no one present was innocent. Because the toxin took effect very slowly, the poison tester did not find any abnormality. Your plan was successful. None of the more than 200 people who attended the birthday party survived. Countless people died because of your idea. You also took poison at the birthday party. You died. This tragedy shocked the entire Winter Kingdom, but it has nothing to do with you. The simulation is over, please choose your reward. Retain the realm or retain the magic. Silence, silence. This is the first time that he has been emotionally shaken by the simulated life, because he was too involved. Although it was just text, Shenmue could still feel his despair in the simulation. He did not have a plug-in in the simulated life, but after experiencing the tragic death of all his relatives, he used the memory of his previous life to purify a bottle of colorless and tasteless poison. Shenmue could not imagine what kind of despair that was. It was also difficult to imagine how difficult it was to purify the poison. He only knew that he felt extremely depressed just by looking at these words. Shenmue exhaled heavily and cleared the negative emotions in his mind. Shenmue calmed down quickly. After all, this was just something that happened in the simulation. He would never allow such a thing to happen in reality. Retain the realm. As soon as the thought came to his mind, Shenmu's body underwent a huge change, his heartbeat began to accelerate, and the thumping heartbeat seemed to be transmitted outside the body. If he could look inside, he would find that a golden seed-like thing took root in the center of his heart. Countless golden air currents gushed out from this seed, first entwining his heart, and then covering his entire body. The feeling of this air was extremely obvious. Shenmu even felt as if something was about to burst out of his body. He could feel the surge of power, and there seemed to be a huge force like splitting mountains and rocks when he clenched his fists. His muscles bulged, and he made a loud noise like a machine with every breath he took. As time passed, the bulging muscles slowly returned to normal, his breathing gradually became the same as usual, but longer. Shenmu clenched his fists tightly. He felt that he could even blow up a set of iron armor. Of course, it was definitely not that exaggerated. Even the great knight could only cut through the iron armor with a sword. Blowing it up with bare hands was just an illusion brought to Shenmu by the sudden surge of power. The next moment, Shenmu's mind moved, and the transparent blue light curtain appeared in front of him again. Please read. Chapter 10 Rapidly Increasing Physique in Sparring. Please read later. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Rapidly Increasing Physique and Competition. Please read later. Name, Shenmu. Spirit, 1.5. Physique, 3.6. Realm, Formal Knight. Witchcraft, none. Breathing Method, Golden Lion Breathing Method, Proficient 32800. After writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Knight Skills, Lion Heart / Proficient 42800, Basic Riding, Proficient 128-800, Basic Archery, Proficient 630-800, Basic Swordsmanship, Mastery 523-1600, Basic Combat, Mastery 115-1600. Number of simulations, 0. Compared with before, the realm column has changed from peak Quasi-Knight to Formal Knight. His physical attributes have been greatly improved, and even his mental attributes have increased by 0.2 after activating the life seed. Don't underestimate this 0.2 increase. At this time, Shenmu can clearly feel that his thinking is more agile than before. According to Shenmu's judgment, the mental attribute should be closely related to the wizard's path. Shenmu subconsciously urged the golden airflow that has been concentrated in the center of his heart, but he couldn't shake it at all. The golden airflow was motionless in the center of his heart, but Shenmu didn't worry too much. Because this situation is normal, the golden air generated by activating the life seed through the golden lion breathing method cannot be mobilized at will, but requires knight skills to mobilize. If you want to mobilize these golden airs in one move, you must become a great knight. However, if you don't have knight skills, these golden airs are not useless. If using knight skills is an active skill, then this golden air itself is a passive skill. During the battle, these golden airs in the center of the heart will automatically replenish your physical strength, which is equivalent to hanging a blue recovery buff. This is the absolute advantage of a formal knight over a quasi-knight. He is stronger than a quasi-knight, and his physical strength is several times greater than that of a quasi-knight because of his chi. He also has a knight skill that is like a plug-in. The knight skill that can release chi has a huge increase in the power of a formal knight. Shenmu found it hard to imagine how he killed 2 formal knights at the level of a quasi-knight in the second simulation. It is also possible that not all formal knights are as strong as him. After all, Shenmu has not really fought with a formal knight yet, and he does not know the strength of other formal knights. You should know that Shenmu has been in this world for less than 3 months, and he has reached a level that ordinary people may not be able to reach in their lifetime. From an ordinary person to a formal knight, Shenmu only spent 3 simulations. Even the path of a wizard is not so mysterious in Shenmu's eyes now. What if he has the 5th level qualifications? With the help of the simulator, if 1 simulation doesn't work, try it twice. If 2 simulations don't work, try it 10 times. If 10 simulations don't work, try it 100 times. He doesn't believe that he can't become a wizard after hundreds of simulations. In the next few days, Shenmu did not continue to go into the mountains to hunt. Instead, he sparred with William in the training ground of Moor Castle every day. William naturally suppressed his strength and did not use chi and knight skills. Chen Mu did not show the strength of a formal knight. After all, in William's eyes, he was just a quasi-knight with natural strength, not a formal knight who practiced breathing techniques. This was also intentional by Chen Mu. After all, although he was a formal knight now, his actual combat ability was still too rough. Practicing with William, who suppressed his strength, has greatly improved his actual combat ability. On the training ground, Chen Mu was wearing silver-white armor and holding a long sword. There was a crisp sound under his feet when he moved. William in front of him was not wearing armor, but holding a sword with one hand. He could accurately block every sword that Chen Mu slashed with one move. Although Chen Mu was wearing armor, his posture was still agile. The sound of knight swords crossing continued to sound in the training ground. William was just defending, not attacking. His original intention was to feed Chen Mu with moves. As the sword flashed, Chen Mu moved back and forth in the field, sometimes rushing forward and retreating, and sometimes swinging his heavy sword. His movements were smooth and precise. William's movements were minimal, and he could easily block all of Chen Mu's attacks with just a simple move. The gap is too big. Chen Mu sighed in his heart. With only the peak strength of a quasi-knight, Chen Mu couldn't even make William, who had already suppressed his strength, retreat half a step. The metal friction sound of the armor sounded, and Chen Mu's speed increased again. The silver-white long sword was swung out by Chen Mu, and the air seemed to be cut open. This was Chen Mu's heart attack. Although it did not reach the level of a formal knight, it was definitely the peak of a quasi-knight. Good. Seeing this sword, William's eyes flashed, and the next moment his arm seemed to have a white airflow passing through it. Dang! The collision of the two knight swords made a huge crisp sound, and a trace of fireworks seemed to splash in the air. This attack was still blocked by William, but he subconsciously used his chi. This was completely subconscious use. The great knight has been using chi to fight against enemies for a long time, so he sometimes instinctively uses chi. This has become a habit, but this just means that Chen Mu's heavy sword poses a slight threat to William. If there was no threat at all, William's body would not have made any subconscious movements. Master, your swordsmanship is already amazing. With your natural strength and skilled swordsmanship, if your actual combat ability is stronger, you will have few rivals in the realm of quasi-knights. William showed an admiring look on his face, and his tone was sincere. This was indeed what he thought in his heart. This time when I go back, the master should teach you the breathing method. You can't be too complacent in the future. It is extremely difficult to activate the life seed with natural strength. You can't slack off at all. After praising, William was afraid that Chen Mu would feel proud and complacent, so he gave another serious reminder. The starting point of natural strength is indeed very high, but it is also very difficult to activate the life seed and become a formal knight. It's like God opened a window for you, and then closed a door for you. Hearing William's words, Chen Mu nodded solemnly. He naturally understood William's worries, but obviously William's worries were unnecessary. William didn't know that Chen Mu's natural strength was fake, and he didn't know that Chen Mu was already a formal knight at this time. After taking off the silver-white knight armor and returning the long sword to the sword belt, Chen Mu and William left the training ground together. Because it was hunting day, there were only Chen Mu and William on the training ground. Except for Chen Mu, the other nobles still went into the mountains to hunt every day. After all, not everyone was like Chen Mu. Chen Mu felt that hunting was meaningless to him, while other nobles felt that hunting was a good experience. After leaving the training ground, Chen Mu washed up and returned to his room. Then he took a book from the bookshelf as usual and slowly turned the pages. Chen Mu also recently discovered that reading could calm his mind. When reading, there would be a quiet atmosphere surrounding him, making him feel extremely quiet. Chen Mu's mental strength, which was stronger than that of ordinary people, allowed him to quickly immerse himself in the world of books. When immersed in the words in the book, his state of mind would become calm and stable, which was actually somewhat similar to the meditation of a wizard. This is a state of being free and relaxed. In fact, if Chen Mu understood, he would know that if he wanted to practice the wizard meditation method, the first step to achieve this state is to reach this state. Now, he can be said to have met the first condition for practicing the wizard meditation method. Please read on.